Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Network, the first Wednesday after the first Monday of November, where we make decisions and we've got a lot of things to talk about boxing-wise. And yeah, real political talk, exactly. No, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and I've got my ear thing falling out of my ear. First of all, to John, happy birthday.
Thank you, guys.
We've jumped ahead of the game there. We're already halfway into the bottle, so this is going to be a fun job.
This is going to be fun.
Let's start with the fight of the week, of the month, I guess you want to call it, or the fights of the week that we spoke about earlier. Starting with because I just forgot who it was.
Santa Cruz and Davis.
Senior moment there, folks. Sorry about that. Leo Santa Cruz versus Gervonta Davis. And we know how that turned out. We want to know why. First of all, let's recap what we said we thought would happen, since we've been wrong before. John, how did you see it playing out beforehand?
Did you say me? Did you see me?
Yes, sir.
Did you?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, I was emphatic. Well, okay, maybe I wasn't emphatic. I said that I gave Davis a slight edge, that I wouldn't be totally surprised if Leo won. We were all, I think I remember correctly, we were all in agreement that it would be a really good fight. So everything we said, and it sounds like, since the theme is politics, it sounds like a politician saying, I was not wrong about anything. Everything I said was right. All of us, we're all right. So the power. You fight like Leo Santa Cruz, as we love. Someday you're going to run into a guy that's just got bombs in his hands, and obviously that's what Davis has got. And he got caught. You know, he wouldn't back off and try to keep his distance and box him more. He wanted to go to war with him, and that's what he's always done all his career. So we were right, but in a very, we'll say, very cautious way.
A very political way, democratic way. Mr. Farmer, what did you think going in?
Well, I mean, I thought that if with the game plan, if Santa Cruz, because they always mentioned they were leery of the power of Davis, and I thought if he could punch him, move around, stay away, and get in, get out, and not get caught by that big shot. That was the first thing. And early on, when you looked at it, that they started working the plan, and one shot can change the world. And that's what it came down to, because you could just see where the plan was. He was literally executing the plan early. He was executing the plan. But then we always said it was always going to be whether or not at one particular moment Tank could catch him. And it reminded me of the way, and I'm not just going to say this even though it didn't happen this way, this fight, the way it was built up, the way it came up, and I know you're not going to like this, Mr. Gordon, but this is what people were looking for when they talk about Leonard Hagler. They thought, really, they thought Hagler, this is what Leonard needed to run from Hagler, because if he caught him, this is what, this could happen. And when I thought about this coming in and it did happen that way, I was like, damn, that's just like Leonard Hagler, but except one person decided not to follow what they normally do.
And the way I looked at it was, and I'm not going to say exactly how it happened, because there's no way that I saw it happen. And we did say that for 6 rounds it was going to be pretty close, and it could be either way, but it would have been Santa Cruz probably piling up rounds just because of the boxing ability. Now, the one thing that I believe we said was that Santa Cruz likes to get in a brawl, even though he doesn't look like a brawler. So even though it might have been in his best interest to stay on the outside, he was probably going to fall into at some point of getting in closer than he probably should have. And as you said, does he taste the power, and how's it happen? Well, he's still asking that question now a week later. So yeah, it kind of, I won't say we called it, because if you go back and rewind the film, you're going to see that I said Santa Cruz is going to win. But also that for Davis to be able to pull it out, he would have had to basically do what he did. Now, I'm not alone in that. I think everybody said that across the board. But, whose game plan worked better? And as we've said a number of times, Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a game plan until you get punched in the face. So
yeah, and Frank, I also think that you remember, I'm sure you guys remember this, Davis hit Leo Santa Cruz with some really hard shots before the knockout blow.
Right,
And he took them really good. The way it was trending, because I wrote about it, obviously, it looked to me that like it was getting to that point. I had a feeling that it was like, uh-oh. Because Gervonta, I mean, that uppercut, that was, okay, it was a thing of brutality and a thing of beauty. Because he brought that thing up from his hip. And it was, but you could see that Santa Cruz he was like a guy on the edge. He was close to falling over, but he kept fighting his way out of it. But it was like he was getting in that situation more and more as the fight wore on. And I don't know if he could have stayed that way. I mean, if he hadn't caught him with that uppercut, I think he would have eventually caught him later, because it just seemed like Tank is just he's just got that equalizer, that great equalizer. And as hard as Santa Cruz was fighting, I mean, he's got a Mexican warrior, and that's what's in his blood. And man, I was scared when he went down because he wasn't moving.
Yeah. And
I was so happy when he woke up, and of course he had a smile on his face like he always does. But it was like, holy, because that's one of those where you go, when you watch sports, because it's so abrupt, But you were right about one thing, Frank. I'll give you this. You kept saying it was going to be a hell of a fight. And I wasn't agreeing with you because I wasn't sure. I thought it would be good, but I think it was a hell of a 6-round fight that you can go back and watch. I mean, that was as brutal as a knockout or stunning of a knockout as when Pacquiao got knocked out by Marquez. That's what it was like. Bam. So, right? I mean, we had Lomo and Lopez, which was a real good fight as far as technically and for people that purists like it. But then you had this, which was not a pure 6er, but it was a pure 4. It was, it was exciting from the opening bell, and that was good. I mean, now that Leo's okay, that was really good for boxing.
Well, not to inject a moment of levity into this, but that's what I do. But now I visually saw that punch that Davis landed, and I go back to what Darnell Boone told us a few weeks ago about the hardest punch he got hit with was his own uppercut. Because I could have seen if Santa Cruz wasn't there, I could see the fall through and I going boink, hitting myself, and that had some zip to it. So yeah. Now we also had a few other things on the card, or not that card, but where we're going from there. We had Usyk versus
Chisora.
My brain just stopped. Chisora. My brain just stopped working. Dereck Chisora. Usyk wins fight. And
barely.
Barely. But as we noticed after the fight, or somewhere after the fight, they're off to the side sharing a burger. We mentioned that's kind of the way it should be. I just kicked your butt, you kicked my butt. Now it's time to relax. Charles, what did you think of what we were talking about, the lead up of that, and how that played out?
Well, I mean, you have two different styles of guys fighting. Usyk was always that guy trying to make sure he wasn't going to get caught and all like that too. But it's unusual when you see two guys fighting, and then in the end they end up seeming like they're pals or buddies. But that kind of talks to the sportsmanship of boxing, and then really good guys, because everybody's a contender. Everybody's a guy that wants to fight and they want to win. But then afterwards, people start to get into their feelings sometimes. And they think, well, if I had this, I could have beat him, or I don't really like that guy overall. But when two guys can say, hey, we did our best, we come in, we fought, put it on the line, and he was better than I was today. And I think that's what it is. When you look back at the whole thing, when one thing I will say about the whole Tank Davis fight too as well with Santa Cruz, afterwards he says, Leo's a tough fighter. We knew he was going to bring it. He was going to bring the best out of me, but I was better than he was today. They never put him down, or never said he was a bad guy, or he was sorry, he was soft or anything. They just said today, I was waiting on him. We got him, but that takes nothing away from his skill set. And that spoke volumes to me about Tank Davis. And I think when you see two boxers coming together, when they're both putting on the line, they can respect one another and say, yeah, you got me, but hell, I want a rematch. But right now, it's what it is. So that showed a lot of class, a lot of character for both of those gentlemen.
And as we are sitting here in these United States in these times, and we remember when we were playing Little League Baseball and your parents made sure you went across and shook hands, nice game, nice game, nice game. I'm not going to make a statement about that other than I appreciate that that's what these two competitors that are going after a prize that they both want dearly can look at the end of it and go, all right, he was better than me today. So that's my statement for that. Now, as we also had, and we'll get into these things more in depth here, but we also had the Monster against Maloney. Now, if you haven't seen, and we have a problem with this here in the United States. We see the guys we want to see or that we can see, and then we kind of, he fights in Belgium or he fights there. He's not that guy. John, what did that fight show you?
Well, if you follow boxing closely, you know the Monster, it's like we say, well, he's the real deal. He's been the real deal for a few years. If you follow boxing, you can just see the naked eye test or whatever you call it. You could just see the kid is very talented and he does a lot of things technically. He's not perfect because no fighter is, but he's exciting. He's got power. I mean, you notice right away his punches make a different sound when they land. And this wasn't an easy fight. I mean, Maloney's a tough guy. He only lost once. He's got power. He hung with him for a few rounds. But then again, if you watch boxing, you could see that the Monster was just breaking him down very systematically. So it was again, boxing, the sweet science. I like to say it's like a work of art in a sense. He was just chipping away at Maloney. And then that right hand was perfect.
There you go.
So
right, yeah.
I hope he gets more. I hope that he gets to the point where Chocolatito eventually was, if Arum could promote him that way, because I think he's got that kind of talent. He wants to move up. He wants to fight everybody, and like I said, he's not perfect. He might have a few flaws that somebody might, like Nonito Donaire showed. But first thing, you got to be able to take his shots. If you can't take those punches, you're going to immediately be in trouble. And a lot of guys at that weight, and even we'll see what happens when he moves up, but a lot of guys won't be able to take those punches because he is a hard punching, like Ruben Oliveros was back in the 60s. He knocked down Danny Lopez and only weighed 120 something pounds. He knocked guys out like that. He's going to be a tough fight for anybody, and he's going to win most of his fights until somebody could show that they can fight him hard and get the advantage, like Nonito did. Nonito lost. So that tells you about the Monster, that he's a very well-rounded fighter, and that was an impressive performance.
Okay, now Charles, let's go back to the Davis-Santa Cruz fight, because it seems like you had something else you wanted to say about that, but we also want to get in more depth and into more depth with it now. Let's go back to now that it's happened. First of all, what did Tank do that we expected, and what did he do that maybe wasn't expected?
Early on, they kept acting as if he was going to do something different and special, like he was going to box, and he didn't box. He didn't really box. I mean, they kept talking about whether or not you're talking about what, like he was going to come out with this new, like Floyd Mayweather type style type of boxing, and he didn't do that.
That's not Tank.
Yeah, but it's not. I think the way that they were kind of putting it off, saying as if he was going to do that and he was going to be have more of an open style. And I think early on, even though the rounds may not have said it, or the judges didn't say it in the way that they scored the card, that allowed Santa Cruz to touch him, and he was marking him up. And I know a lot of people would say otherwise as far as the amount of punches that were landing, but from an eye test, I thought early on Santa Cruz was winning that fight, and he was frustrating Tank. And I didn't expect it. I expected a little bit, but I was waiting for that boxing they were talking about. And it really didn't happen. But the other thing we did expect, if he had an opportunity, he was going to take his shot. And John mentioned as we got into like the fourth and fifth round, you could start to see where Santa Cruz was mixing up a little bit more. And you just knew you do that, you open up the door to receive that and feel that power.
Right.
And I think he was cautious early on. He kept boom, 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 throwing the combinations. That's Santa Cruz, that is. But at the same time, the body was happening, and you just knew, like, okay, that's good, but can you keep what we call peekabooing? Can you get in, boom, 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 get out, boom, boom, and stay safe? And he did that for a while until that round, that 6th round where he dropped it, and you're like, oh my God, don't do that. And Davis was like, boom. You're like, oh man,
explosion,
my heart hurt for Santa Cruz. You know I love Santa Cruz. I like his heart. I like the way he fights. He will fight, and he'll fight you in the parking lot right now. That's who he is. And sometimes maybe to his own detriment. But I like him for who he is. And so I think that's what we saw. And I mean, from a Santa Cruz standpoint, I don't think there's much that we did not see. He was who he was. He was exactly the guy who we thought he was.
Right.
You know, it was what it was, maybe again to his detriment. But I think it served him well throughout the fight, except he made one mistake. And when you make one mistake sometimes, a major mistake where it cost you. Yeah.
Do you think that maybe, as John said, that, you know, he tasted what he thought was the power? He's like, well, that wasn't that bad. Earlier on, it's like, I got a couple shots. I weathered that. If that's all he's got, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I think yes to a point, but I don't think that he ever thought, I'm running from this dude.
Right.
He didn't want to engage totally, but he fought. And I think he still knew in the back of his mind was going, hey, yeah, he got me, but I'm still going to have to play peekaboo. But I know that at some point he can really knock me out. But I think he was going along and he just got comfortable. That happens. He got comfortable. And when you get comfortable, he's not the only fighter to get knocked out. I mean, like we mentioned about Manny Pacquiao. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody. Because we thought that, you know, Marquez, the only way he would win would be a knockout, but you didn't see that coming. And it happens. So, no, I don't think he was, to answer your question, I don't think he was leery. I don't think he was like, oh, I'm comfortable with the power now. I think he just made a mistake. And Tank opened up, took total advantage of the situation.
John, if Santa Cruz hadn't got caught by that shot, does he get caught by another one? Or is
I think so, because running is not in his DNA. He's going to fight. He's a fighter, Leo Santa Cruz. And think about it. If you're him, you're thinking, okay, I've lost one fight out of 38 fights. I've been knocked down once in my whole career, and that was really from what I read, the referee apologized to him later and said, look, I looked at it again. You were tripped. You really wasn't a knockdown.
Right.
So you're thinking, I got a great chin. And we said that before that. We said that last week. He's got a good chin. And I think there might have been something to that, Frank, that he thought, okay, I tasted it. I'm here still. But I don't think he was thinking that too much. I think he was thinking, he can't do that to me. And I could see as a human being, you would think that. I mean, I always equate it to some sports, you know, when you're playing a sport and you're going, that guy can't do that to me. He can't do it. You know, you think about years ago when we played whatever. Oh, yeah, he's good and everything, but he can't do that to me. Well, he can't. And that's what Leo found out. And the other thing is I loved how the fans were so great to Leo afterwards. And it's just because he's such a class act. And we were also relieved that he was okay. And then if I'm Leo Santa Cruz, Frank and Charles, I'm sitting there today in my nice little mansion where I have it thinking, look, I have no regrets because, well, there's that. But I gave it everything I had. Yeah. I mean, Tank's eye was swollen. Yeah. He was hitting them with some sweet left hooks. It was just that the closer Tank got, the more dangerous he is. And he would have had, we knew this. Remember, I think we said weeks ago that he would have had to fight a perfect fight to beat Gervonta. And that's just because the one thing that Davis has that's really, well, he has a lot of things that are impressive, but and he's not really getting the credit for this, which is unfortunate. And I think it's because of the dislike of the guy who manages him, the name that we mentioned quite a bit. I think that's a lingering, which is too bad.
Sure.
But he's a really good counterpuncher. And that's what he did then. Like Charles, you said, he was waiting. And he had nailed him with a couple uppercuts before, but that's a split second thing. And when he saw where Leo's head was like this, and he just,
like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and he just dipped and ripped, as I call it. I mean, that was just wow. So he deserves all the credit. Leo Santa Cruz, because that's what we want. You know, we want two guys to go in there. They're in great shape. I've never seen Gervonta Davis in such great shape.
In that kind of shape, right.
And that's what he's got. He's got to stay out by you, Frank. Maybe you'll go running with him one of these nights or days. And, you know, why not, right? I mean, stay in Vegas, train there, stay with Floyd Mayweather. Stay under that guy's banner because it's good for your career. And to me, that's a maturity thing. Obviously, he said that I'm gonna train here all the time. Good, not so good for the lightweights because we can talk about him fighting who we're thinking of at some point. But at least this is the last thing I'm gonna say. At least the both of them, they did everything they could to prepare for this fight. So. Sure, if you're Leo Santa Cruz, you feel bad, but you did everything you could. I've never seen him in that kind of shape. I've never seen him that ripped. I'm sure he was strong. I'm sure he felt great. So, again, in any kind of sport, you want to have no regrets. And I don't think either of them. And if anything, they learned something, especially Davis. He's like, yeah, hey, I'm coming back to Vegas when I'm fighting one of these guys again.
Well, Gervonta, if you're listening for what John said, I've got a gross of rice cakes over here off to the side. So we'll have some rice cakes, watch some cartoons, have a great time.
Sounds good.
Now, I think Santa Cruz could have won the fight by not being Santa Cruz. And I don't think he could do that. He could have piled up points, as you said, Charles. He could have stayed away, went peekaboo, and not had to worry about the power. But I don't know if he could do that. I don't mean that he's not capable. I just don't think that's in his DNA. And I think that if he did that and won, he wouldn't have been satisfied with the win. It's like, I have to do the way I do it, and this is more important than just getting the W. I got the W, but this is who I am. This is how I fight. And, again, like you said, he was marking him up. He was doing what he had to do, and he just made that mistake. And as John said, he probably would have made that mistake at another point in the fight as well. It's hard to be that perfect. So, it's tough, but, as Charles has said, we love Santa Cruz. We don't want anything to happen to him. We like him to keep on winning fights, but hey, that's the way it is. So now, as we start doing what we do, we get into the speculation of things, because now we're looking at a loaded division or two, and where does it? Oh, I'm just going to shut up. Charles, go ahead. Run. Speak, run, jump.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, this might sound like it's I'm hating on Tank Davis. I'm not. With that power, I think it was clear that he can say what he wants to. He's not 130. Okay. He's not 130. He can fight. He can make 130. Yeah, he can do that. But no, the better fights and would better serve him with the guy that he's running with promotion wise, because they say they're going to bring you the best fights and they're going to bring the most money, is going up. It's going to be 135. Okay. It's going to be 140. And I'm not saying that he picked on a little dude. I'm not going to do that. Santa Cruz is a big man. He put his self in that situation, and he stepped in there with a monster, and the monster got him. And he would never apologize for that, because he won. He'd be like, oh, look what I did. So there's no apologies there. But I think that now, in regards to speculation, fans and other people too, now it's time to see. You say you're the best, and your promoter keeps saying we're gonna fight the best, and we're not afraid of anybody. And the whole thing about the Glock don't have no safety on it. I get all that. Since it don't have safety on it, then let's do the Ryan Garcia. Let's do Haney. Let's do Lopez. Yeah, let's start knocking these names down, because I'm gonna say this, and I'm not going to predict anything, but I'm just going to mention it. Out of the higher weights, I think these guys bring more of a threat as far as the punches are concerned.
Right.
And the styles are going to make the fight. And then if Davis, depending on the style, if he comes off the way with that one knockout blow, he might be able to get against some people. But I think he's going to face some serious issues if he's not more versatile, because some of these guys are more technicians. And I think the more he gets up in weight, not saying he can't knock all of them out, he has that power. But I think that's part of it. And you can see the way that Santa Cruz was touching him. Early on, it was like, you need a knockout. And I know the rounds, they were saying that they were giving him the rounds, which
Right.
I was a little bit over the top for me, because I was like, he's winning some of these rounds. But I think with some of these other guys that we mentioned in these names, that they're going to provide more of a probably a stiffer challenge because they're bigger, they're natural weight, and they have the hands that make it even more inviting. So I am very much looking forward to these upcoming fights, if that's the decision, the way that they decide to go.
Well, we're looking at a lightweight division that's got Lopez, that's got Garcia, and a few other guys. Is this where, John, you go in and you say, I've got a belt, you've got a belt, I should be able to fight for the belt? Or do you say, all right, slow down a little bit there, son. Let's get you a couple fights at that weight so we can prove something. Again, we don't know what promoters are thinking and how they're thinking. But is it he's ready for the title?
Well, from what I heard, they want to keep him at 130 for one more fight, like a defense against Jojo Diaz, who's a very good fighter. Yeah, and I knew Charles would react to that. I was thinking that wouldn't it be cool if Tanker or the guy who manages him said, look, we're going to stay at 130, and we want that guy that was considered the best pound for pound guy. We want to fight him at 130 pounds, and then he can prove that loss that he just had to Lopez was a fluke. And but a guy like Lomachenko and a guy like Gary Russell Jr., those two guys you're talking about, and this is piggybacking on what you're talking about, Charles, about technical skills. Those two guys, with the way they can move and all that, they would give Tank problems. They wouldn't hurt him. They would not hurt him, because Tank has never even been knocked down. I mean, he's another guy with a good chin and all that. So against Lomo, but they could outbox him. We could see that. They could outpoint him if they didn't get caught by one of those bombs. But I think the chances of Gary Russell Jr., who's as quick as lightning, as we know, there's a cliche, and Lomo, who might not be, but his footwork is magnificent.
Right.
They could outbox. So again, here we go with what Charles said. If I'm that guy who manages them, I don't want any piece of those two guys. I'm moving up to 135, and I'm calling out whoever, because it's the young guys are taking over now, and that's the way it should be. These are all the three names they're all young. So you don't get right into it with them right away, but you build it. You can marinate this a little bit because they're all young. Hank's only 25, right? Haney's 22, and Tiafimo's 23, I think.
23, right.
So you can have them have a couple of fights, and then then Ryan Garcia's 22 or 3. I mean, this is, if I'm a promoter, I'm salivating just thinking about what you can do and make it even more of a build. I mean, to me, it's a super fight. If you put Davis and Lopez in the ring together, you put with Haney, or you put with Garcia, all of those are tremendous matchups. So that guy who manages, he's sitting there in his house in Vegas going, first I should call Frank and ask his opinion, but
get some rice cakes. Yeah.
He's right down the street from you. We know that, Frank. So, but he's thinking, I love this. I love this. I got options. We had our pay-per-view. I haven't heard the numbers yet, but that's important, but not important, because the fight itself was so good. So that, to me, that helped his reputation. So if he fights one of these, and he will, I think he will fight one of these guys in the next year, and any of the three, we're going to be going, oh man, this is one we can't wait to see. So it's going to be fun.
Can I throw one other thing in there?
Go ahead.
So I'm totally speculating way out. But late, if everything keeps rolling and he's still knocking them down, I've been waiting on this, because you already know how I feel. You took down my one guy. I got to throw somebody else at you.
Uh-oh.
Late 22, early 23. We can speculate that now because we're almost into 21. And they have gotten together before sparring. I would love to see my buddy Shakur Stevenson get some of that.
He's another one.
Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson in another year and a half. Yes, sir. And he'll be bigger too.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
He would give Tank problems.
Yes,
No
he
doubt
would.
about it.
I'm looking at around those weights, and I'm looking at guys that are a little bit bigger, or guys a little bit smaller. At that super feather junior lightweight, whatever you want to call it, I'm not sure that there's somebody right now that's fighting there consistently. Now, you may want to say maybe Josh Warrington moves up, something like that. I don't know. There are so many ways you can go because it's only a few pounds here and there, but consistently fighting at that, who's he got? Tevin Farmer?
Davis knocks him out.
Yeah. You might go get Burchell, maybe.
That would be a firefight.
That would be interesting. But again,
he's a lot taller.
Right. But again, that's one of those where I don't think that's a sexy one. I don't think you're going to go $74.99 on pay-per-view with that fight.
No.
And that begs the question I was going to ask in a few minutes, but I'll ask it now. Now that you were the $75 pay-per-view, do you go back on Showbox? Should you do that? Now are you a headliner? And that was something I wanted to get to in a little bit, but I might as well do it now. Is this now Gervonta Davis headline material that all the fights I have from now on until I lose are going to have to be upper echelon? We're fighting with the bright lights and all that stuff. Or is it, hey, just because of the time we're in right now, we got that one in, but we don't have to put him in against somebody spectacular now. Charles, is this again, Shakur Stevenson's a few years down the road, but does the next fight have to be that almost mega fight kind of thing?
If you're talking pay-per-view, you're talking about $75 or up, it has to be. You have to be. You cannot, I like Tank Davis, and I know people are excited about what he did, but am I going to pay $75 if I'm an average person to watch you fight Josh Warrington? I'm just keeping it 100.
No, that's my point. Yeah.
I think that you're going to have to fight Garcia. You're going to have to fight, Lopez, because those are pay-per-view fights.
Right.
Those are and people will pay for those. But you can't, if you're going to do that, then let's drop back down to Showbox. But knowing the promoter as we do, he's going to want the bigger fights. So, to answer your question, if you provide the correct talent, even I know they're talking about Lomachenko, that still makes you go, unless Lomachenko comes up with something, another fight in between that brings back your trust or your trust in him as, hey, our pound for pound. Because now we saw what that is, and it'll be a tough fight, but you're still going to be worrying about the same thing you did before with Santa Cruz about the power aspect. So, I don't know. But I think in order, to answer your question, in order for it to be constant pay-per-view, you have to provide dynamite opposition for the people to come out and put the money down.
Okay, now you brought up something that maybe we touched on last time, but let's look at it a little bit more in depth, and not to get away from these guys at all. We'll get back to that. But going back to Lomachenko, John, is he been kicked off the mountaintop?
Well, yeah, because he lost.
That's
what we do.
Right. So if he's going to continue, is he going to have to go fight somebody down below, somebody up and coming, or does he get another shot with somebody? Does he have to go get a guy like a Luke Campbell or
already beat him?
Yeah. But is that where he's at? That he's going to have to go prove himself against somebody who's trying to prove themselves?
Yeah, well, he's going to say that he wants a rematch. They're already talking about it with Lopez, and Lopez is going to say, forget that. So unless they throw a million and a million and a million and a million, and then he might go, oh, well, maybe I ought to think about that. And actually, I'm going to say this right now. I think Loma would have a better chance to beat him in the second fight because he would know what he did wrong in the first one, and he might be able to pull it off, or I think he could pull it off, definitely, if he's healthy and all that. Oh, well, we're not going to get into all that stuff. But Lopez had surgery. Lopez had surgery too a few days ago, so I don't know how healthy he was. And he said that I wasn't healthy. So, if I'm Lomachenko, first I'm going to decide what weight I want to stay at. Do I really want to stay at 135? Because when I fight at 135, I've struggled. The Linares fight was a tough one. He was knocked down. He was the cards were close, and then he hit him with a body shot, and Linares didn't get up. So do you really want to, or do you want to go to 130 because you got all those guys? You could fight Tevin Farmer, like we said. You got Jojo Diaz. That's another champion. He could win another title from him. It's just going to depend on your ego. If you feel like I can't go back down because it looks like I'm giving up and I'm going back to 130 to fight these other guys, or do you say, okay, I'm going to stay at 135. I'm going to prove my point. But if you're going to stay at 135, you better find a good opponent to beat. That's your point, Frank. I know, to show that you belong with these guys. And Haney's already been calling out Lomachenko. If I'm Lomachenko, if I'm going to come back and I'm going to fight him, I'd be going,
See, and that's where we're at.
Right. He's in a tough spot. You're right. He's in a tough spot because, you know, when you lose, then everybody wants to fight you. And we make that mistake. I got to say that. I've been meaning to say this for weeks. We make that mistake in all sports and boxing is that we sometimes go on the last time we saw these guys. Right. And then we're so surprised. Oh, he looks so much better. Well, yeah, because that was just one fight. That's not his whole career. You know, we do that. We make decisions based on how they look. You know, like when Santa Cruz fights again, the first thing we're going to think is, oh, can he take a punch now?
Right.
Of course he can take a punch. You know, so we fall into that whole thing.
That punch, right.
Yeah, well, that punch, right, from that guy.
Going back to the way, remember the Michael Spinks show that we did? And how even though we know better, we're under the impression that Michael Spinks' career wasn't that good because the last time we saw him, he was getting his butt kicked.
Exactly.
And he did. But what did he do up until then? He was pretty darn good. So,
very good.
Charles, we're looking at the same thing with Santa Cruz. Has he been kicked off the mountain? Does he want to come back? This guy's a fighter. That's a stupid question to ask because I know he wants to come back. But where does he come back? How does he do what he has to do? Maybe he is the stepping stone for Shakur Stevenson.
Well, I mean, that's possible.
Because we're looking at maybe he was up a weight higher than he should have been. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Shakur has called him out. I mean, he mentioned the name, and he will fight him in a heartbeat because he think he can beat him. But I think that, Santa Cruz looked at it. He took a chance. He went up. Now he's come back down. It's like, look, I don't need all that at 135. Okay.
I don't need that.
Granted, it was at 130. Okay, granted, it was at 130. But the majority of those guys are going to be at 135, 140. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go back to 130 where I know what's going on. If I had to, I could drop down and be, 126, 128. Here's some good fights there. One of the fights, as you mentioned, that somebody would love to have, when you look at that too, everybody would love to fight Lomachenko, right? Right? Everybody would love to fight there. And then we have so many others there. But I think he's going to end up probably staying at 130 or moving around a little bit lower, but choosing the right guys. Because you mentioned there are so many guys that he could fight. You mentioned about the two boxers that could possibly give Tank Davis some trouble at 130. But I think Santa Cruz he's still a good guy. He's still talented.
Right.
You just don't drop him down like that too, because he fought a guy that has heavy hands and dropped down and probably got in the best shape of his life and be at 130. But that guy is normally 135 and actually get to 140. And this guy at some point might be thinking he's going to 147 at some point down the line. I mean,
that's what I think, right?
Down the line. So there's no shame in taking a chance. A lot of people have done it and got knocked out, but he'll come back. But I think it'll just be at a lower weight, and I think he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He will learn from this too, because he will now know you can't just go out there and just take a chance on a monster. You got to still stay in your comfort zone and win.
This is the Mikey Garcia thing. Don't do that. You don't stay where you were good. Right. Some might say great, but you don't belong up there.
Yeah.
Sorry, you just don't. I mean, they have these weight classes for a reason, and you've jumped too far. Now, okay, let's throw this out there. Let's call this Redemption Fight 2021. Ooh, let's do it on Cinco de Mayo. though there's no reason for that. Santa Cruz, Lomachenko.
Well, I got to say this. I saw something flash on my email right when you said something about Danny Garcia. I guess there's talk of him fighting Pacquiao. So, yeah,
Danny or Mikey?
I'm sorry, Mikey Garcia, okay, yeah, fighting. Okay. I'm sorry. There's your old age moment for a second. Well, Mikey against Lomachenko. Yeah, because Danny's fighting Errol Spence here. Yeah, he's fighting Errol Spence next December. I'm trying to save myself here, Frank. So, Lomachenko probably won't go for it because let's see, Santa Cruz lost his title to Davis, right? All that confusion about titles. Lomo is all about titles.
Right.
So unless he's forced into it, unless Arum says, look, you beat him, then you're going to get somebody big here in the rest of the year. He would do it. But I don't think he's going to be interested. He's going to want to win a title again. So now I could be all wrong here, but I'm thinking if I'm him, I want to fight one of those guys. I want to fight Tevin Farmer. I want to fight Jojo Diaz. I want to show that I'm a champ again. I'm not a former champion. I'm a champion. Right. Leo's not. Now, after he beat one of them, maybe he could fight Leo Santa Cruz then.
Right.
But there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position here, so it's gonna be very interesting.
Well, see, and that's where I'm trying to get into the mindset of who do they still think they are? Because as you said, they've only lost one fight, or their last fight, I should say. They've only lost that fight, so whoever they were supposed to be before that doesn't mean they're still not that guy, you know. And we can always say, well, Lomachenko, the shoulder was bum and he couldn't. Okay, fine, you know. Hey, maybe Santa Cruz fought a guy that he probably isn't going to beat no matter what because of the power and because of that. He maybe was up a weight class too much. But if we go back to where we're supposed to be, I'm still the man, if you're still thinking that way. So how does it play out from there, Charles? Not just for those two, but for everybody. What is the speculation on I'd like to see of, let's say, Tank's next fight and Santa Cruz's next fight?
Wow. But we talk about your point though with the Lomachenko versus Santa Cruz.
Okay.
I think there's too much real quick too much at risk right away. And as you mentioned, Lomo fights for belts. He's calculated like that. He wants to get back in the money. So you jump right back with those guys right there with none of them, neither one of them having a belt. It makes you go, we don't need to do that because there's really nothing to gain out of that. I mean, it's a great fight, but there's nothing to gain. But the next fight for Tank Davis, I would say, I don't think it would be Haney. And I don't think it would be Haney. And I don't think it would be Haney or it would be Lopez, which leaves Garcia, right? Which leaves Garcia. Yeah, leaves Garcia. Because Garcia is still kind of young, kind of raw. And he would take the shot thinking that he's right. And I think they were like, yeah, okay, we're going to go ahead and give him a taste and we're going to keep building up. So I see somebody like that because you're moving up. You still stand on that upper echelon. This is a guy that really feeling himself. So you take that chance and you go there. So I could see something like that because you could have Tank go down at 130, but then it's like, even if you do one more fight, is it Josh Warrington at 130? But is that legit? Is that pay-per-view? That's my other thing too.
See, so
yeah, is that pay-per-view? So, and I know John, you mentioned about he might have one more fight at 130, but I need to see somebody else. I mean, you said, is that Jojo Diaz? Is Jojo Diaz pay-per-view material?
Pay-per-view, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So if we're gonna stick, then you can be on Showbox. So what do you want? What do you want? And I think that the factor, if you're talking pay-per-view, I think the pay-per-view fights are up. Unless you would fight a Lomachenko, or something like that. Pay-per-view fights are up for him. But looking at Santa Cruz, and you mentioned maybe it is about a fight. Maybe it is a Jojo Diaz. I think he would take that fight. He would take it in a heartbeat because it's guys like that, or even Josh Warrington. I don't think he would fight Shakur Stevenson. That's a little bit too much right now. But I think that those two guys, and if it puts him in a position to win another title, especially at that 126 126, 128, 130, I think that's perfect for him because he doesn't have to worry about that power.
Right.
I like that. And he can still be Leo Santa Cruz. So that's why I see him going next.
Well, I think we in that mix, we always forget Miguel Berchelt. I don't know why we do, but we do. And because, let's face it, we haven't seen him. I mean, we haven't really seen him out against everybody else. But I guess the question, we'll get off of it real quick, is that, as we mentioned, now Gervonta is pay-per-view. And so you're not going to go back to Showbox. I get that. But I guess the question is, I'll get off of this real fast, and I don't even need to hear a response, is that we're looking at now Lomo and Santa Cruz. We say they've been kicked off the top of the mountain. I guess the question is, how far they've been kicked down the rung of the ladder. Not just in their mind, but in other people's minds. Because I would think if I'm an up-and-comer, I still have to go past those guys. But maybe other people think they lost, I'm already on top of them.
Yeah, and you know what? I wanted to say this. See, if I'm the manager, and he knows it better than anybody, I don't have to have Gervonta Davis's every fight be pay-per-view at this point in his career. Because if you remember Mike Tyson, when he got to a high level, every one of his fights weren't pay-per-view fights. He would have a pay-per-view, then he would go and have a regular Showtime fight. So Showbox, whatever, he would be the headliner. So he would still be the top guy. Plus, that would add maybe more popularity to him. Then, so it would be that marinating thing I'm talking about. He'd make a defense, then he'd have a pay-per-view fight. He'd come off like another knockout victory. So then you fight one of these three guys, and that's obviously pay-per-view. So you use that as a springboard to the next one. Because again, we don't have the numbers yet, but I don't expect the numbers to be all that good because a lot of people are going to go, who? I mean, people know them if you know boxing, but they're not going to be big sellers because pay-per-view, that's your name has got to be almost household to really do well in that area.
I guess I'm using the phrase pay-per-view, not necessarily what pay-per-view is, but is it I'm Apollo Creed and I'm going to fight Rocky Balboa the first time? No, I'm not going to fight Rocky Balboa the first time. I'm going to fight, Ron Lyle, or I'm going to fight Ken Norton. I'm not going to go pick Rocky. But if I'm Gervonta Davis, I'm not going to go fight the number 25th ranked guy. I guess that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and Frank, let me throw this in. Haney's fighting Gamboa on this Friday, and I believe, or is it Saturday? It's November 7th, and that will leave his team the ability to go, look, Davis fought him and this happened, and we fought him and this happened. So that's why they're doing it, because they love to do that in boxing. They love to compare. So, and we love to talk about it. So the Haney team is obviously setting it up where they want to fight one of the top guys in 2021 or 2022, whatever. And that's good. That's what we want. So yeah, Haney's fighting here in a few days. So it's not getting much notice, but he is fighting a very good fighter in Gamboa. And it should be, like always with boxing, it should be interesting to see. And
I'm trying to remember what Gamboa had the belt in the lower division.
Yes,
in the lower division. Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yes,
and acquitted himself well. So it's not like he's fighting chopped liver, right? Okay, now let's look at a couple different things. The other fights that we just saw. Let's look at Chisora and Usyk, and we don't have to get into any real depth to it, but understanding where that puts Usyk in this line of whatever in the world's going on in this mess of whatever's happening. Let's start with the heavyweights, and let's talk with a little speculation, not just on our end, but on other people's ends, and we can get into that in a little bit. We were talking off air about some comments that somebody made, and we all did the same thing. Right. So is there any, and I know the answer to this, so this is going to be a stupid question to ask, is there any validity to any of the things that Deontay Wilder has been spouting in the last few days about whether it was a trainer or the costume or the gloves or all the stuff? Does that help his case any to say, I need this fight? Charles?
I wouldn't say it helps his case. I think it has more people looking at him with a side eye, because at the end of the day, you come into the ring, you're the guy that's inside, and you have to make those decisions. You can say the costume, okay, that's a little bit far-fetched for me. You knew you tried to cross the moment before you. So one of the first time you walked out there, you knew what the situation was there. And then the other things too about then you talk about the referee. Referee had nothing to do with this. You know, the crafty one, if you will. Fury had a game plan to get heavier so he could lean on you, control you, pop you, keep you around, keep your range of motion and your limit your punching ability, and keep you right in his focus, which is what he did. Kept me right close to him in the circle. And the whole thing about Mark Breland, for a guy that has really helped you improve, because let's look at where he was when he first came into the
right
to the came on the scene, and what people were saying back then, some of the same things they're saying now. But Mark Breland helped him to get to another level as a professional and understand what he had and what he could do. And now for you to kind of just poo-poo him out the way and kind of just throw dirt on him and say he was one of the reasons why, because you know that you don't feel this kind of way, put something, spike something in your water. It all sounds like sour grapes because you lost. And to say that the guy that you fought had something in his glove, it's like, I mean, damn, this margarita, all over again. And if that's the case, why you wait so long to bring it up? That's
to bring it up, right?
Yeah, so now you're not getting the fight. So now you come to all the reasons why you deserve another fight. I think a lot of people on the outside going, why don't you just, if that did happen, why don't you just start getting ready and say, I'm ready to fight. And whoever you fight next, show them that we were wrong as hell, you had a bad night, and you're ready to go. But to keep coming with these excuses makes it seem like you're the guy that you said you never would be. And that's the guy that doesn't make excuses. You come to fight. You're a man's man. You're going to go out on your sword. You have no excuses. You're going to come out and you're going to fight to the death. But it doesn't seem like that's who you are right now with all of the excuses that he's using.
Well, John, for those that don't, you've been around the game for a little bit. For those that don't understand that it's 2020, not 1933, before a fight, what do they have to do to ensure that your hands are wrapped and ready to go and all that good fun stuff? Just in 30 seconds, explain that.
Well, they have a person from the commission who's there, and they also have a guy from the other side watching very closely as you're having your hands taped. We've seen that, and they have to sign off. And now when they're putting the gloves on, usually somebody from the commission is there too. And when they get in the ring, usually and I'm not sure this happened, they get in the ring, the referee also checks the gloves. You've seen them. They touch them just to make sure. Now, that doesn't mean that this is 100% something could go wrong. It's just that my point is, you're talking about referring how old I am. Thank you, Frank. I wasn't there when Dempsey fought Willard, but Willard said that Dempsey's, believe it or not, Charles was like, well, I'm not quite sure about that. Charles, keep that to yourself now. Willard always said that Dempsey's gloves were, thank you, that Dempsey's gloves were loaded. So I think a lot of what this is, most of what this is, 99% of what this is when you're the heavyweight champion of the world and you've knocked out 41 of 42 guys, you don't think anybody could beat you. Sure. And then when somebody beats you, you got these guys, friends, supposedly, that say, oh, well, I saw something on social media where the gloves didn't look right. And Wilder goes, oh, yeah. And he says, hey, Deontay, you look kind of tired when you got in the ring. You think maybe that suit you were wearing was a little heavy? Oh, that's two. And then someone says, hey, you were mad at Breland because Breland threw the towel in, and you were mad at that. So maybe it was a conspiracy. They're on the other, he's really working on the other team. He wanted the fight to end. So he's already mad at Breland for doing that, right? So now he's going to expand his conspiracy and go, well, yeah, I didn't feel right. Maybe Breland spiked the water or something. What about the other? If you want to go I know it's ridiculous. If you want to go all the way, what about his other trainer? What about him? Why don't you throw him under the bus? Why don't you say, well, if Breland spiked it, why didn't he notice? Why didn't he see it if he's such a good trainer? It's like that real funny Monday Night Football. Come on, man. I mean, this is ridiculous. And I wish Wilder had listened to Breland more, to be honest, because Breland could have showed him more. And I don't think he listened as far as the little ins and outs of boxing, because he still counted on that power. And he's got great power, like Gervonta Davis, heavyweight power, no doubt. But a little bit of the ins and outs of the game, a little bit of tricks, a little bit of boxing ability. He should have listened to Breland a little more. But Frank, it's like I said, when you're the heavyweight champion and you get knocked on your butt like that, it is just really hard to accept. And then you got these, you know what they are, these moochers hanging around giving you excuses for what happened, and then you buy into it. That's on Deontay Wilder. I always liked him too. I had him on the other show I was on, and we had him on. He was hilarious. It sounded like he didn't take himself all that seriously. Obviously, he did take Bomb Squad. You know, he took all that very, very seriously, and he thought he was. I guess we should have known when he said he would have knocked out Tyson. Because I'm going to say it. There is no way in hell he could have knocked out Tyson. No way. So he just built himself up so much. So when he loses, he's like, how did that happen? I got to blame others. So,
and sometimes you believe what you don't need to believe about yourself.
Yes.
Which is hard to, well, because the narrative is still being made by other people, but you're reading along with it and going, yeah, maybe I am that good.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
maybe I am great. Maybe I am the best it's ever been. And then I got knocked out. Well, you all said I was fantastic, so something else had to happen. It wasn't me, or wasn't him. Something, yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting story that I can't quite. This is one of those things you try and wrap your head around and go, as you said, why did it take so long for this story to come out? Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, we look at Lomo. It's like, yeah, I had surgery today. I'm cool. You know, I respect that. I'm not going to make any waves about it. He hasn't even made an excuse of it. Just like, nope. Okay, it happened. I had to have surgery. I'm good. You know, that doesn't mean I should get a rematch. Doesn't mean I shouldn't get a rematch. It's just the way it is. You know, I respect that. You know, it would have been nice maybe if we'd have known ahead of time, but I don't know that makes it now. That sounds like an excuse. You know,
right. And unlike Manny and Freddie Roach and everybody else that was tied to after they lost the decision to that guy, they were throwing out that excuse minutes after the fight ended. And that's classless as far as I'm concerned. You shouldn't do that when you're a champion.
Well, yeah, just like it happens. I made the fight. I made weight. I did what I had to do. I'm good. All right. So let's look at now, does this fight, I know it's kind of not an upper echelon heavyweight fight. Does this change the tiers below Fury, Joshua, blah, blah, blah? Or is it we're still looking at those 3-4 guys and that's it? Does this change who we can get in there and what may happen as the heavyweights are concerned? Charles?
Maybe. I mean, because the question is now, who is Fury going to fight if he doesn't fight Wilder, right? We know the next fight is not going to be Joshua. Joshua already has a date. So he wants to fight, and he mentioned December. Might be kind of close on that one, but his next fight has to be someone. And then, of course, who is it? Is it Dylan White, right? Is that really like that or somebody else? But however, he wants to have another fight. So I don't think it's the upper echelon. But then again, for all of the complaining and everything we talk about, I don't think you can just really dismiss Wilder like that, okay? You can't, because even if Fury does this one, then he does, does Joshua, Wilder's still next, right? If he decides to retire after Joshua or doesn't honor the contract, somewhere or another, Joshua's going to have to come and fight Wilder, because that's what people want to see. He deserves that shot, if nothing else. I don't know when he's going to get the shot, but he deserves it. So the question is, who is it going to be against? Like I said before, personally, I think if he was really in the right mindset, he had the right people around him, win, lose, or draw, especially when you lost now. I know you want to come right back, but I was like, you know what? For a certain fee, Joshua, Fury, make your business, handle your business, do what you got to do, fight, come see me at the end of the year, whoever wins, and pay me. That gives me a whole another almost year to get ready. I could take a little tune-up fight somebody else, and go about that way. So, but I think that's how I would approach it. But evidently he's not feeling that way. But it almost sounds like if this goes through the way we're thinking, he might be forced to do that anyway.
Well, I was going to say, well, if he's shut off to the side, who does he fight? Does it go fight Povetkin?
No.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're see, this is the problem we have when we figure we're at a level.
Right.
Now you got to step down or do you step up? And if you are the one-time defeated heavyweight champion of the world with 137 knockouts in 47 fights, you know, I'm not going to sully myself with, you know, Kolnacki or somebody. Where do I go? Well, you've boxed yourself in the corner. Like Charles said, maybe you got to wait.
Yeah, and Fury is fighting December 5th against a guy I can't say his name and never even heard of him. I hate to admit that because I'm supposed to be an expert, but his name is Ajit Kabali or somebody. He's undefeated, 20-0, 13 knockouts. Yeah, I don't know. But he is fighting this, December 5th. But you guys are right. Wilder's put himself in a bad position here in the sense that he's going to have to wait. But see, if I was him, if I was one of his friends who wasn't just thinking about staying on his good side, I would say, look, Deontay, you need to fight. That's what fighters do.
You need to fight somebody, right?
Right. Forget about the Fury crap. It's not working. People are just moaning and groaning. Whatever respect you had, you're losing it by the minute. You need to get out there and fight a contender. You know, Ortiz is fighting again here. He's not going to fight Ortiz again, but fight somebody in the top 10.
Charles
Talk about fighting Joseph Parker in 2021.
That's where I was going to go. Right.
You were thinking that. Okay, fight him if you're so sure that you're the guy. Fight him, and then you fight the winner of Joshua and Fury. Now they have a rematch clause, from what I understand. They have 2 fights they're going to. But in between that, who knows? You know how boxing is. So if I'm Wilder, you're talking about falling off the mountain, Frank. Here's your segue.
Right, yeah.
Wilder has fallen off the mountain, but a lot of it's due to his own comments, his mouth. He was never the most respected guy. We talked about that because he never was technical and he had a lot of power. And, you know, he lost every round to Ortiz and knocked him out. We know all that. We've been over that. But he was still the heavyweight champion of the world. And whatever he was doing it right, doing it well. So he should try to let the Fury thing go and just get back to what he's supposed to do and show people, okay, look, I'm still here.
I'm almost to the mind to say, I've been knocked off the mountain to another mountain. I'm still the man. And if you're saying you're getting jobbed out of this fight, run with it. It's like, I'm still a champ. So who wants a shot at a belt that's not a belt? Daniel Dubois? You want to prove yourself? Here I am. You know, who wants to prove themselves against somebody who should be and do it that way? I don't know if that will work. I don't know if they can promote it that way. But I don't see right now where the other 3 or 4 or 5 top 5 guys are going to want to fight him either. Charles, am I wrong about that? Right, exactly. For both sides. You know, if I'm Wilder and I have this thing set up for me down the road, even though there's no guarantee for that, I'm not going to go down and fight somebody who has a chance of beating me. And if I'm somebody who's waiting for all this to play out at the top, I'm not going to fight Wilder, who can take me out with one punch. Mm-hmm. He's kind of stuck himself. Charles, what, and not just him, but how does that little sphere of stupidity on his part mess up the whole division?
Well, it messes up the division, but it really messes up for him. I mean, there's nowhere to go. So, I mean, I mentioned Dylan White. I mentioned, you know, some other guys too, but trying to think of the guy to beat Joshua.
Ruiz, Andy Ruiz.
Ruiz, see?
You're not going to fight Ruiz. There's nothing there. I mean, now Wilder is about titles and opportunities to get another title. Ruiz should be fighting Ortiz. Like I said, I've been calling for that fight forever.
Right.
But Yeah, but I think the rest of the division is affected by it, but it's not because they still can kind of move up. There's still some play in that. The person to me that's really only stuck is Wilder because he's not wanting to play ball. He had an opportunity to kind of move up. They kept playing with the date. Then we got the virus came up and back and forth, and time keeps elapsing. And Fury is like, I do want to fight you, but I want to fight soon. You don't want to fight soon. You change your promoters. It's always some drama with you. Right. So I'm going to do what I got to do. You want to fight? We're going into 2021 now. If you keep waiting, I'm going to move on. And now Wilder's like, instead of saying, all right, I'll meet you January 3rd, well, he comes up with all these excuses. But he's losing ground. But I think the other guys up under that, the Whites, all of these other guys.
Parker,
they still have leverage and they can move around. They still they can move around. They have some different, let's go over here. Somebody's talking about fighting this guy. They can move around. Wilder, again, is the only guy that's stagnant because from a hilltop, on the mountaintop perspective, where can he go?
Well, it's like he could wait for Pulev at 28-1, but he's fighting Joshua.
Right.
So if Pulev loses that fight, which he's supposed to, then what does it do Wilder to fight him? No. And if Joshua loses to him, he's still going to get the Fury fight.
Yeah.
So, there's so much that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It's again, I think he backed himself into a corner. And if he had just, as you said, if he just would have come out of that fight and went, well, nuts. He caught me. Let's move on. And
Frank, I think he's proven why he wouldn't say that with his comments. He would never say that. Sorry, I jumped in. I just
no, that's right. No, but that's it. So there you have it. You're like, okay, well, so I don't. Again, we keep talking about the heavyweights because, as everyone says, heavyweights make boxing go around. But every time we talk about the heavyweights, we come back to this little thing, and it never seems to want to resolve itself. The only way it's going to resolve itself, I think, is if the best way for it to work out is for Fury to beat Joshua and retire. Because at least everyone say, we don't have to worry about him and we can all scatter to the top now. But as long as you have Fury up there dictating what's going on, and I'm not saying he's doing it a bad way or on purpose, it's just he's the linchpin to everything. So everyone that should be fighting each other is trying to fight him. As Charles said before, Wilder should have went, go ahead, you two fight. I'm good. Buy me out. I'm good. I'm going to fight somebody else. Then I'll fight the winner of that. I'm cool. Yeah. And that's what he should have done months ago. Instead of coming down to this and this and this. And it's now, what, 8 months after you said that?
You know what, Frank? You know what drives me crazy too? Because, again, you guys reminded me how old I am. The heavyweights don't fight. Thank you. Gosh, I'm drunk as a skunk here with all this watching you guys.
He's drinking water.
Sure. No, the heavyweights, they don't fight enough. It drives me crazy. You talk about, because you made me think of that when you said how boxing goes is because of the heavyweights, right? It's like, why does Joshua fight like once a year? What is Eddie Hearn scared of? See Andy Ruiz. That's what he's scared of.
Sure.
Right? So, but even if he's scared of Andy Ruiz, if you want to make a big impression or you want to get out there and fight, look at how many times Joe Louis, they called it the bum of the month. A lot of those guys weren't bums. Those guys weren't bums, really. I went back and wrote an article about it because a number of them were a little iffy, but none of them were bums. That was very harsh. Some of them were very ranked fighters. So if you really want to do something, fight. Fight 3 times a year. Ooh.
But here's my response. My response to that is Joe Louis's promoters couldn't have stole Joe Louis's money if he wasn't fighting.
Right.
So
unfortunately, a cynical comment.
I know, but true, right?
Yes.
But these guys are trying to take more money from bigger kitty with less activity. So they're looking for more guarantees. Joe Louis, was there a guarantee? If Joe Louis had lost to one of the bums, he had got a rematch, had a chance to get back at him, and moved on from there. We wouldn't have cared if Joe Louis retired at 48-7 or 65-9. Wouldn't have mattered. Now it's a whole different story. It's a good analogy, but now it's a whole different story. You lose one fight and you're done. Your record is tarnished unless you are Manny Pacquiao, and that's again Manny Pacquiao came to the fore 20 years ago. In this day and age now, if you lose a fight, I mean, we're looking at Lomachenko. Oh my God, he lost. He's still not one of the best fighters out there? Well, yeah, but it's how he lost. No, it's that he lost. So I agree with you.
You can change that perception. I mean, in a way, Joshua did, in a sense, because he lost and then he won the rematch.
Right.
So it just depends on what you want to do.
Right.
But I hear you. I hear you.
Right.
Nowadays, it is different.
And that's where, as Charles is saying, let's throw Shakur Stevenson out there. What about the guys that are out there, the Richard Comeys of the world, that are Robert Easters, that are, are they quality fighters or, well, they lost? Did they lose big? Well, yeah. Did they have a bad day? Well, we don't care about that. This guy beat him, so they're no longer in the mix. And again, not knocking Shakur Stevenson at all, Charles. I'm just saying that's the idea of, you've lost, you've moved down, way down, as opposed to you're no longer the number one guy, but you're still the number 4 guy. And we just kind of bypass those. Like, okay, here's the transition. Now the monster just beat Maloney. Maloney's lost 2 fights. And he lost to the monster. His brother lost. I keep getting, okay. So the Maloneys have lost 2 fights. Anyway.
Okay.
But now that's bad. I shouldn't do that. But now that loss has happened, where does he go? Does he get a rematch? Did he earn a rematch? No. So who is he?
There's other guys to fight.
There should be, but he still should be the number 1 contender or pretty close to it, right? But he's not going to be.
Right. But when you look at it, like you said, there's only a few people to get a pass. You mentioned Manny Pacquiao. And then, of course, my other guy gets a pass. My favorite guy, Gennady Golovkin. Always get a pass. Always.
Glenn Coffey Johnson got a pass.
And I went back and I looked at his record even, and I saw who he fought when he came over, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Get the 5 little facts out. I have no idea.
He didn't fight the top right.
Right. But I mean, that still has nothing to do with when he was in against some top guys. He won. He handled his business when he was so-called like in his prime, whatever. I get that. But now it's like, how? And I'll just get off this. It's just a rhetorical question. You have to be answered. How is he still in the top 10 with all this going on? All these people. Okay, we just saw some great. How is Triple G still in the top 10 right now of all boxing?
Is he in the top 10 of pound for pound? Is he? I haven't looked at the pound for pound.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong list. I saw his name.
Well, I understand the list was probably from 6 months ago because they haven't had any fights. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Golovkin's lost 1 fight, extremely debatable. Okay. Right. He had a draw, extremely debatable. He won that fight. He last fight, extremely debatable.
But I think
could have lost that one. But I'm gonna finish real fast.
Okay.
I get exactly what Charles is saying, but I don't have a problem with him. Maybe not pound for pound anymore, but on the cusp because he's obviously gone down. But again, he's only got 1 loss, and he wasn't knocked out. He wasn't blasted out in 1 or 2 rounds. And it was a controversial loss to the guy that a lot of people consider the best fighter in the world, Canelo. Now, so
I think what he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, is how does he get a pass at that? And regardless of why he's getting a pass, where other guys don't. Other guys lose 1 fight or kind of lose 1 fight or lose a split decision or whatever, and they get moved straight down.
Yeah, that does happen. You're right.
Yeah. Whereas this guy,
happen.
And again, as Charles said, he's like 1 of 1 for pretty much everybody else in this day and age, other than Pacquiao, you lose a fight, you're gone. You got to fight your way back up.
Right.
You know?
Hey, he's got money symbols. He's got money symbols on his robe too. They think, right? They put him in another big fight. He's going to make money. People love him, so there's that too.
I mean,
that unfortunately is thrown in.
I guess the Derevchenko fight too. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at that too.
Right.
Like, okay. And it's not to say that he's not a good fighter. Okay, he's not solid. He is. I take nothing from him. But when I think top 10, especially what's happening right now, I'm thinking about a guy that's, you know, he's still showing me that I'm still worthy. And I'm not saying you throw the Charlos up in there in top 10 and anything like that. But if you want to remain top 10, fight somebody else. Fight somebody that makes me go, okay, we can't get Canelo right now, but I'll fight Charlo. I'll fight whoever. If it's, you know, DeAndre, Andre or whatever. Fight somebody else because granted, I know, as you mentioned, John, people like him and whatever, and I don't like to try to belabor it, but it's just that point of the Deontay Wilder reason why wasn't top 10. I get that because people always looked at limited skill set, even though it's heavyweight champion of the world. But this is supposed to be a guy that you say, okay, and we already, in my opinion, I mean, they said you mentioned Canelo being maybe perhaps one of the greatest fighters, but to me, I know he's top 10, but he getting a little pass because he's all, I mean, you go up here fighting the guy you know you can beat at the heavier weight. Everybody knew that. Come on. And then you bounce back down here and you still have the Andres, you have the Charlo, all these other potential guys over here, and even the Triple G. But I understand that when you are the king and you winning, I don't have a problem with that. But when you even take a loss or a draw or it's close, I guess that's my issue with Golovkin.
Here's my analogy. If you're going to be the pound for pound guy, all right. My analogy is this: I went to a Cleveland Indians baseball game in the late '90s. Might have been mid '90s, whatever it was. And Omar Vizquel was the shortstop. Robbie Alomar is the second baseman. And we watched them before the game, during batting practice, them taking infield. Like, I don't even need to see the game after this. They were so good at what they did, and they were working so hard at what they were doing so they could be almost flawless as a double play combination. When this is insane. I don't need to see the game. If I want to go see somebody spar because they're that good, do I want to see Lomo spar? Do I want to see Ali spar? Do I want to see Tyson spar? Do I want to see Andre Ward spar? Do I want to go see Triple G spar? At this point, do I want to see him just in against just anybody? No. The thing about, and again, this isn't to knock Triple G at all, but a Triple G fight has to be Triple G and. It's not Triple G fighting somebody.
Not no more.
He's not no more, right? He's not the headliner. So if you're not the headliner, how are you one of the best out there? And that's, I think, what we're getting to is Lomachenko a headliner anymore? I don't know why.
I disagree. I disagree. Lomachenko is the headliner still.
No, that's what I think he is too. Yeah.
And so is Golovkin. Golovkin is too. He's still the headliner. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he is. He's a former champion. You know, and Golovkin's story is complicated because if he didn't have managerial problems in his 20s, he'd have been over here in America when he was really in his prime. Again, I'm not trying to jump on his bandwagon. I'm just saying he was really a good fighter, and his story is complicated. He got here when he was over 30 years old. How would he have done if he had got here when he was 25? When he was really
Arvidas Sabonis. There you go. Now is Santa Cruz still a headliner? Now I know it's just a few days away.
Yes.
See, so if that's the point, which I agree with you, if that's the point, then why are we going to have problems finding fights for them?
Golovkin, they ought to create a mystery. Whatever happened to Gennady Golovkin? I mean, he's AWOL. I mean, I've been talking to Jonathan Banks, trying to figure out how to interview him, and he's not doing anything right now. What's he doing? I don't understand what Golovkin's doing either. He's 38. I think he's 38 now. 37, 38. More time he doesn't do anything, the worse it is. But he's coming off a very, very tough fight, as we know. And where does he go from here? He looks at Andre and goes, ugh. Right? He looks at Charlo and goes, so he waits for Canelo. Canelo's in his suit in court. So I personally think that Golovkin knows that he's on the back nine of his career. I think he's on hole 17, actually. I think he knows that. He wants to cash out. I do. I think he wants to cash out with a one more big paycheck, and that's Canelo. And when they come to him and say, we're not going to get that, why don't you fight Charlo? He just looks at him like, I mean, he's a fighter. He'd do it, I think. But he wouldn't be as excited as it would with Canelo because he's fought him twice. Not that he'd beat him.
Right.
But I do. I think Golovkin is thinking, look, this is it for me. I took a pounding in my last fight. A pounding. Charlo beat the same guy easier than I did. What does that say?
Well, it seems like, yeah, go ahead. I know. Okay, good.
I'll just say this, John, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for admitting what's real. And the reality of it is he's on the back nine. He knows it. And he wants that big fight. I don't have a problem with that. But and not seeing you, but other media individuals, types, that keep pumping him up like he's this guy, which I don't think he's the same guy as he was.
He's not. No way.
And I think when you do that, you say that, but you just come out and say, hey, look, he's waiting. This might be his last shot. And he believes he can beat Canelo. And that's fine. I'm good with that. But there's a spot you holding for somebody else that deserves that spot that is proven.
Very true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we got these guys coming up. I'd rather see, and he could be at the very right below it. And he's not the only one. There's other guys in that top 10. I go, these younger guys deserve some love. They're coming up. I mean, what you gonna do with Lopez? I mean, Lopez is like, I beat the man. You got the man right here. I can't get in the top 10.
Right.
You had the man at the top. I don't have no, who's moving? Somebody has, all I'm saying is, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm just looking for some new blood, fresh blood. Let's shake it up. Let's get some new faces in there, guys that are accomplishing some things a little bit more active, even with the lighter weights. Let's do that. And no disrespect to him, that's all I want to see.
Frank, real quick, when we were talking, I looked up ESPN's pound for pound, and Canelo 1, Fury 2, Teofimo Lopez 3, Lomachenko like 8, Golovkin. Golovkin's like 9.
Yeah.
So that I knew Charles would love that. So yeah, it's more on his reputation. It's more on his reputation now than his skill set. That's really. But Teofimo's getting the love, and that's good. But yeah, Golovkin, it's more on his rep.
Well, to carry on your golf analogy, here's what I think it is. Okay, not only is the 17th, he's playing the TPC at Sawgrass, the 17th, the island hole, and he's got one ball left. That's what it's like to me. He's got one ball left in his bag. That's it. You got to make sure this next one's perfect because you're done after this. And maybe that's why we haven't heard from him. Maybe he's making sure that whatever happens has to be perfect because he's got one ball left to hit onto that. And if he misses it, party's over.
And Frank, continuing the golf theme, he knows he can't hit the driver as far as he used to. These guys are really caught up with him. And he's like, I got one more shot. I'm going to make it all money I can and make that big putt, hopefully, and dance off to the sunset.
You're looking at your driver like, why is there a skill at the end of the stick? Yeah, right. but where we're going, and this is, again, and this is sports all over again. This is, we're talking football, and we go into the season, or at least last season, we're talking about Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady, and who ends up being the Super Bowl MVP? Patrick Mahomes. Who ends up being the league MVP? Lamar Jackson. Okay. It's time for the new guys to come in. However, when we do and today's game is featuring Ben Roethlisberger. blah, blah, blah. Of course, we're not going to talk about Sam Darnold. We're not going to talk about Jared Goff. I get that. But we have to knock the old guys off of the mountain so young guys can become the old guys. But in this case, I don't know what the mountain is. That's the problem. In that sport, it's pretty easy. If you get your butt kicked, you throw 3 picks, you're done. Here it's, did I win? Did I lose? Did I win by decision? Did I get robbed? Did somebody spike my water? Did my costume weigh too much? You know, am I having shoulder surgery after the fight? Did I step on a crack and break my mother's back? Who knows what in the hell happened in order for you to not be the man anymore? Because unfortunately, as we used to say, or Ric Flair used to say, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. Woo! But if you don't get a chance to get a shot at the man, what can you do? And that's, again, this is why I say we should have some regulations on weight classes and belts and all that crap. But if you can't get a shot at the guy, again, if you are Teofimo Lopez, you got a shot. Oh my goodness, I'm getting a chance. And I capitalized on it. If you're Gervonta, I got a chance. And I capitalized on it. That's what I think is coming back. I went back and I looked at our show that we did back in May, I think it was, about what does boxing have to do to make a splash when they come back. And right now, they're kind of along the path. Kind of along the path that we're talking about. They need to keep doing that. Again, Charles, I think that you're right on the money that it would be great if there was a tournament. Maybe not in all the divisions, but in a few of them. Weight classes, I'm sorry, not division, weight classes. If you do that a couple of times here and there, let's churn through the mess. Let's figure out who belongs and who needs to work on their game a little bit more. We're good.
Yeah, and Frank, you know, I gotta say this too. See, when you were talking, I was thinking too, what it would take to get what we want would be the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, the blah, 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 blah. Whoever is really powerful, maybe the WBC somewhat, instead of being up these guys' butts, to be blunt, like they are with Canelo. Canelo talks about fighting guys. He never brings up Andre. He never brings up Charlo. You say this. You say, no, we are designating Charlo as the #1 contender, which means, Canelo, if you don't fight him, we're stripping you. I mean, you start doing things like that. I think that's the only way anything dramatic, because the fact that he doesn't even have Charlo or Andre in the conversation with possible opponents, to me, disgraceful.
Yeah. But see, here's the problem. I don't mean to cut you both off, but here's the problem with that, is that if you are the WBC champion and he's the WBA champion, you're not ranked in the other listing.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. I don't know where the hell that came from. Well, he's the champion, so he's not even in the top 10. What do you mean he's not in the top 10?
Yeah, that's
He should
ridiculous.
be 1A. Right.
That's ridiculous.
So they don't want that. I don't know why they don't want that, because as far as I'm concerned, if it's a unification fight or you're fighting the #1 contender, that's what I want to see.
Right.
You know? And you should have to move your way up. I don't know. Charles, you were about to jump in there. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, I think you're right on point that you look at where it's been for years, and now you talk about setting it up. There's so much confusion with different guys and the way that they go about ranking them. It just makes you shake your head. There's no, there's no things that are set up the right way. There's no consistency amongst that. And then it's almost as if, when WBC comes up and then the Suleimans come up, it's like one thing to Suleimans because they do exactly whatever the fighter want to do. There's a time where when the Suleimans and WBC would say, you know what, you're not following our rules, we're snatching that from you. Now it's like, Kizzy, and I want to thank you. You're gonna be in my next rap group, rap album, and rap video. It's such drama. It's such a farce now that it's a hey buddy, how you doing? Good to see you, buddy. Let's make all this money together type of scenario.
I think, and I'd have to go back and actually do the math on it because I've never done that before, but it's something that could be done. Okay, Why did we start the IBF?
Yeah, you asking me, talking to me?
I'm just asking in general because I'm not sure that I know, but I'm willing to bet that I know what it was. That some promoter said, we're getting squeezed out of something and we got some cash to make out of this.
Yes,
so we need another belt.
That's why.
Okay. If you look at where Don King was, and Charles, you probably know this better than I do. Who was Don King aligned with? Suleiman, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Best buddies, best friends.
Who was Bob Arum? Yeah. So, and if you can see where I'm going with this.
Right.
The promoter is aligned with the organization. Pretty much so. Right. Not always, but pretty much so. Which makes no sense to me at all. That's antitrust or whatever you want to call it. So, first of all, you got to eliminate that. How you do that, I have no idea. Because if I've got a WBC guy coming up, and this is, I'm Don King or Dan Duva or Rock Newman or whomever else, you immediately line up with that belt. Now, if you get all the belts, that's great. But you're not going to throw the belt in the trash can if you aren't going to be guaranteed that you're going to get something from somebody else. Excuse me. So that would be, if we're talking about reform, and we could do this for another 3 hours. But if you're talking about reform, that's the first thing. You need a commissioner of boxing or someone who gets all that out of the way. But it's just like we talk about with college football. We were able enough to get the playoff games, right, but we still had to keep the bowl game in order to keep the playoff game.
Right.
Does that make any sense? Well, somebody still needs to keep getting paid. Right. So,
that's the bottom line, Frank. That's the bottom line. That's
why you got the Pinstripe Bowl and the Tangerine Bowl and all these things. So the point of that is irrelevant anymore. Yet there we are. So
yeah, you're right. And money is always money. Money is the bottom line. And these guys want their own divisions, their own titles, so they can fight for their title and make their own money. And there's nobody that has the guts, I don't think, to say, look, this is crazy. We're hurting the sport, because they're all worried about themselves. That's what it all is. It's not the betterment of the sport or the fans. It's all about, who cares about the IBF title? The thing that drives me crazy is Suleiman always is talking about, when they have the big fights, he presents another title to the winner of the big fight when Golovkin and Canelo. Why? They seem to think that when you add another title to the guy, it brings him up in esteem. I don't think the fans give a flying what. I don't. And it's a ridiculous thinking. And I would love to talk to him and get him to be real if possible and say, why do you do this? This doesn't impress anyone, doesn't help anyone. Is it an ego thing? But you got to pay millions of fees to the WBC when you have these titles. So it's just back to what you said, Frank, money.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of those guys dropping them too. That's why a lot of people relinquish the titles, because I don't need this. I proved it, and now I'm going back down.
Well, okay, the fight that we just had was for the WBA lightweight belt and the WBA super featherweight belt.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? So you've got the super belt, you've got the silver belt, you've got the Legends belt, you've got this one, you've got that one. And after a while, now, granted, these two can fight. Don't get me wrong. Santa Cruz and Davis. That should have been for title. Yeah, but what? Yeah.
Yes.
At a point, you're going, not only are there too many divisions, too many of those, but then you've got the interim title holder, the super this, the plain one, the silver one. It's, fourth grade T-ball all over again. Like, what in the hell's going on here? And as we've been talking about, how do you make fights? And I'll get off this real quick, but how do you make fights that the fans want to watch? Well, and as we were talking about Lomachenko wants to fight for belts. Well, that should be easy to do because there are a ton of them out there. So is it for prestige or for the belt? Again, we're talking about Wilder. Where is Wilder chasing the belts that he lost, or is he chasing the prestige of what he had? I think he's chasing belts more than his prestige, because if he had And I'm not going to say he's a classless person. I'm not going to say that. But if he had some more class, he wouldn't be talking about the stuff that he's talking about now. As Charles said, he wouldn't have ran Mark Breland through the mud like that.
Yep.
You know, that's a classless thing to do. Even if it's true, you wouldn't do that.
Yep.
So I'm trying to figure it out. And to me, it all circles around to that. You know, we just saw, some of us just saw the monster fight, which that may be the rare, like it's Loch Ness monster. We may not see him again for a while. But they brought him up there. There he is. You see how good he is? Okay, now go away. That's about money. I don't have a problem with money. Okay, I'm going to ask this question real quick, and we're probably running out of time, but I'm going to ask this real quick. Just off the top of your head, Charles, just off the top of your head, what would it cost? We know the cost of, say, the Dallas Cowboys or Arsenal or whatever. They're valued a certain number. What would it cost to buy out Bob Arum? Just make a guess. To say, Bob, you're 147 years old. You want to sell the business. What kind of money do you want to be done?
Let me just say this, and I might be way out of bounds, but I would think, even at that age, this man, what he's already accomplished, you're gonna have to come with him with something that begins with a B and not with an M. Real talk.
How many? So my question was, how many Bs?
Well, I mean, I think it starts no less than 10. No less than 10. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
No less than 10. 10 billion.
Yep. That's what I was thinking too.
That's minimum.
De La Hoya, Golden Boy, about the same or more?
I think you could get, I think you can get that a little cheaper. That's just
okay.
Because and the reason why I say that is because you look at the fighters that they have. They got one draw, truthfully. One draw. And he might just be tired of the whole damn thing. In the right situation, he might just cash out. That might be 1 billion or 900 million. I think he might want to say, because they've done everything. You've been rolling with Floyd. Floyd's no longer in there. That's how they were making the money too, because they were always co-partner.
Right.
All the Floyd fights. And a lot of that stuff, you can still roll with Tank Davis, but they're kind of doing their own thing anyway. They really don't need Golden Boy anymore. So I think Oscar, for the right check, maybe 900 mil, might say, you know what? I don't need this no more.
See, because I started thinking about DAZN and the problems they were having when they didn't have anything coming in. And anyone that starts a business knows you don't start a business without at least a year or so worth of reserves to keep everything going, because no matter, something may happen. Right. You may not get any fights. All your fights may flop. You may have a global pandemic that shuts everything down. You don't know. So you have to have enough money to be able to cover your expenses for an extended period of time, right, just in case something doesn't work. So how much money did they have in DAZN or invested in or whatever to be to the point where now, after 6 months, 8 months, they're almost ready to, close to bankruptcy.
Yeah, but it's not, but I guess, whatever you say, how many millions, even if you said billions, the problem is they have nothing coming back in worthwhile. And that's the problem. You have to, when you have a budget, it's like business 101. I've been around business. We all know about business. You can have something that you guarantee you that might start at, and I'm just throwing something out. Let's say you have an annual fundraiser brings you in $500,000. Okay. That drops down to $100,000, or it's down to 50. You go, man, we're not doing that anymore. It's not worth it. But the whole thing is you have to replace the $50,000 that you've been used to having. Same way with the loan. You're making a certain kind of money. Put all this money out. You have to have something coming back in, because you can spend money all day, but the way you make profit, something has to come back this way. And that's their problem. They don't even have something that you can die. You guys know about it more than I do, because I did not subscribe. You do not even have a rerun or a reel of quality fights that makes a person want to go, man, I'd like to see that fight again. Ooh. it's not there. So you're
Right.
now, and then you have your biggest star saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I want my money, but I don't want to fight somebody with quality. So all of the balls are all up in the air. And guess what? The clock's ticking. He hasn't
Right.
fought. No money really's coming in. And it's kind of like AMC theaters. No disrespect to any lawsuits, allegedly. But if nobody's coming to watch the movies, you might have to close the doors.
What do I need the popcorn seller for? Right. Well, it reminds me of, because I know we talked about it briefly, and I just saw that show as well again. How in the world did HBO get out of boxing? Because looking at it as a fight fan, you go, this doesn't make any sense. Till you realize they're losing money. Oh,
yeah. How's
that possible? Because they're losing money. But, they're losing money. Oh, okay. And John, this is a thing where, if, the reason I kind of asked that question was because I've got a blank check sitting over here. If they don't cash it for another couple of weeks, I'll write that check to Bob Arum for, $17 billion. That's cool. I don't have a problem with that. He's got to let it, post-date it for, 17,000 years or whatever. But the idea of it being, there's still, is he going to bequeath this thing to Bob Arum's grandchildren's fund or something? I mean, how much money is too much money or enough money to not be able to say, okay, we've messed this up. We've messed up the sweet science. It could be so much better than this because this guy's got to get his cut. That guy's got to get his cut. That guy's got to get his cut. If we work it together, we're all going to get something out of it. At least that's the easy way to look at it from my point of view. And I don't know squat about anything. So it seems like it makes sense to me. But as we always say, it comes back to, you got this WBO super middle lightweight. You don't know.
Well, Frank, you know what? I equate it with a guy who gets into politics and he says, I'm going to be different. I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil. I'm going to do different things. A lot of them say that. That's what Oscar De La Hoya said when you're talking about Golden Boy. I'm not going to be like Bob Arum. I'm not going to be like Don King. He ended up being just like him. And that's sad because he seemed sincere in the beginning because he was coming from a fighter's perspective. And the fact that he sold his soul, like a lot of them do, is really, really bad. And I know Oscar's gonna punch me when I see him.
I'll make the joke off air. I won't make that.
Okay. But I got to say this. I think that you're talking about younger. Arum is like 88, I think. I still, even though I criticize him, I still like the way Eddie Hearn runs his matchroom boxing promotions. He's an ultimate pro. I think he really legitimately cares about his fighters, which I like. And he makes some pretty damn good fights. He has women fighting, and they're good fights. He's got Katie Taylor, who I love to watch. He's got Harper now. He's got some good fighters. He put Dillian White against Povetkin until Povetkin's had COVID, so that's delayed until January now. I think he's a total pro. I do. I don't like everything he does. I don't like how he handles Joshua. But he might tell me, well, I got a guy who's got like a flat tire here, so I got to protect him a little bit. I got to make sure I put him in the right situation. So I would love to see some young blood in there. That's what I'm saying. Eddie Hearn's like 40 something, not young, but Arum, he's still doing his thing. But God, I wish somebody had that money where they could just say, look. And then what I meant by that too is their desire is to change things. Right. And that's where, okay, you buy it, but will you really follow through on the changes, or will you say a bunch of guys come over and go, no, forget that idea you got. I'm going to give you another 400,000 just to leave things alone. And then this guy says, I'm going to give you $1 million and I'm going to do this. And you're like, maybe I ought to just stay status quo. So it's probably never going to happen, Frank. I hate to say that in boxing because boxing is connected to the red light district. It's always been borderline corrupt and all that. And it's all the green stuff. And sadly, the worst thing that ever happened was what we've said 100 times, all these new IBF, WBO, they ruined everything as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we all love it still. But it messed it up so much now. It's in bad shape.
Well, we could do this, and maybe we should do this as an entire another show, because there are a couple things that have just popped in my head that maybe we can kind of. I've got a flow chart in my head of what we can do a couple things about. So anyway, it's been another great show, I think. To John, happy birthday, sir.
Really appreciate that, man. Thank you.
It's been now that you're 104 years old, I'm sure we can make
reminding me I'm older than dirt over and over. Thank you, Frank.
Well, we don't want to insult dirt like that, but anyhow.
Good one.
It is.
Ouch! God, what do you need to say, Charles? Oh man!
Poked you in your eye, and I felt it.
I know. I'm hurting. Jeez, Frank.
All right, let's get out of here while we have a chance, boys and girls. It's been a great ride. We've got a lot of stuff coming up again, and we will see you later. Thank you.